there's a guy, let's say, probably a lot like many of your close friends, good, hardworking, patriotic, red-blooded, good old American family man, but experiences some real hardships all of a sudden. His job lays him off, finds out that the guy that he's invested all his money with is suddenly vanished. His rumors are he's left the country, and our friend notices that his accounts are now at zero, so that's not good. So now he has no income, he has no savings. Pretty soon he has no cars because those get taken away. And he finds out the bank is getting ready to foreclose on his house. Doesn't know what to do. He goes to his pastor, and his pastor listens to his story and tells him, listen, I'll pray for you, but the truth is I pastor a really big church, and I can't really get involved in the problems of every single member, so this is something you'll just have to deal with on your own. He goes to the guys he plays golf with, all of whom are very successful businessmen, and they all say to him, well, the only thing we can say is you got to live and learn, because in the future, you got to diversify. You don't leave your money with just one person, so, let that be a lesson to you. So now he's really stuck, doesn't know what to do, goes out and hawks his tools and his guns and his wife's jewelry, and that gets him enough that maybe he can rent a storage facility to store his furniture in for a little while, and maybe rent a U-Haul and a cheap hotel for a few nights until the money runs out. Maybe if a miracle doesn't happen before then, he'll have to find a homeless shelter. Things are looking really rough, and on the day that they're supposed to move out, it's just an awful day. His wife is crying, his kids are crying. He's carrying one end of a couch, and his poor wife is on the other end, and they're just inching their way across the yard towards that U-Haul, when all of a sudden he looks over his shoulder and sees a neighbor walking towards him, and he thinks, oh no, not that guy. Not that guy. That's the guy that has a flag outside his house that's always got some wacky political message like Free Palestine or defund the police, or all June it's going to be a pride flag. Sometimes he leaves it up all through July just for spite. And election season, you don't even want to see what he puts in his yard. And our friend has complained to the neighborhood association, but they won't do anything. So he's just told his kids, stay away from that house, stay away from anybody in that house. When you walk down the street, don't even look that direction. Now that guy's walking his way. And if he didn't have half of a couch in his hand, he'd drop the couch and he would just run away. He would just go and hide. But he's stuck. The neighbor comes up and he says, listen, I heard about what happened to you, and it's awful. So I just wanted to tell you, my wife and I live in that house over there. It's 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Our kids are all grown. So why don't you just move in with us until you get back on your feet? Whether that's weeks, whether that's months, it doesn't matter. We're not going anywhere. Just come on in. Now, ordinarily, he would say thanks, but no thanks. But he looks back at his wife, and suddenly she's not crying anymore. Suddenly there's a look on her face that shows hope. And so he says, okay. So that day, they move all their stuff in. In fact, the neighbor has a 3-car garage, and he moves all his cars out, so they're able to move all their furniture in, and they don't even have to rent a storage facility, so they save that money. And the neighbor goes out with his own cash. He buys back all the stuff he's left at these pawn shops, even the guns. And his neighbor says, listen, we insist. You guys have had such a hard time. You take the master bedroom. My wife and I will sleep on couches. We'll be just fine. Not only that, he says, I've got some contacts in your industry, and pretty soon he's got interviews lined up for our friend with job opportunities that pay twice as much as the one he just lost. And not only that, he's friends with a high-priced lawyer who owes him a few favors, and he says, I'm going to sick him on your friend that took all your money. And pretty soon he's tracked him down, and they extradite him back to the U.S. And it takes a long time, but he makes a deal with prosecutors that pays back our friend everything he's lost. And so after months, this guy's sitting there realizing, I've got more than I had before. I could afford to buy a nicer house in a better neighborhood. But he and his wife look at each other and say, we need to buy back the house we lost, because where else are we going to find a neighbor like this? Now, obviously, that's a fictional story, but I didn't make it up, so to speak. It's my attempt at telling the parable of the Good Samaritan if it were being told today. And I know it doesn't hit quite as hard as the original did, because as much as red and blue today hate each other, it's nothing compared to the hatred Jews and Samaritans had for one another in Jesus' time. For centuries, they had fought. For centuries, they had despised one another. The Samaritans claimed to be the chosen people. They had their own temple. There was violence between the two groups. Even in Jesus' own time, there had been atrocities committed by both against the other. And now Jesus stands and tells this famous story to his fellow Jews in which a Samaritan is the good guy and shames them into realizing the point of his story. Now, we all know the story. I don't have to retell it in its original form. Even people I know who've never been to church, even people who've never picked up a Bible, they know that story because that's the power, the resonance it has. But what we don't know, what a lot of Christians don't know, is the story that precedes it, the story that, I guess, triggers the parable of the Good Samaritan. And that's what we're looking at in John 10:25.